Who gets the first pick of the draft?
Draw. 12. Number 12.
The number 12, the Toronto Maple Leafs have won the NHL Draft Lottery, and Matt Sundin is smiling ear to ear. 1 day after the official announcement. It appears, but now to make it official, Pam Kelleher and Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly.
I can confirm it is official. Toronto has won the first draw in the 2026 Draft Lottery, and as a result of winning the draw, they have the number 1 overall selection in the 2026 draft.
Welcome to 32 Thoughts, the podcast presented by your Canadian Toyota dealers and the 100% electric BZ, available now during Red Tag Days. Bukauskas, Butterfingers Friedman, and Tupat Sramaty with you on this Wednesday.
From the way Dom it was three putt Sramaty,
honestly,
not 2-putt Sramaty.
4-putt Sramaty.
I'm trying to protect you here, Dom.
So
That's
just
all
before
I'm
we
trying
get all
to
to
do.
the news, and Bukauskas texts me saying, "Get to it already." Kyle is referring to me as Butterfingers because we went for wings tonight in Buffalo, as you do, and I dropped one all over my freshly cleaned jeans, and Kyle took a picture of it.
Yes, I will keep it in house, but yeah, there was a lot of honey garlic everywhere. You've been in the city for 3 hours, and you're already.
I will say this: I showed it to Kyle and Eric Engels and cameraman Dan Slater, who we were with for dinner tonight, and the sauce was literally a soup in the basket.
Yeah, it was Lake Ontario in the basket. Yes. So the wings were slipping through your fingers, just like the first overall pick slipped through the fingers of the Vancouver Canucks as they fell 2 spots. And yet again, Vancouver goes through a draft lottery process where they move down and do not move up. And Andrei Vasilevsky may have no time for hockey gods, Elliotte, but suddenly fans in Toronto do again. It was like a Chinook blew through the city of Toronto. If you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes. On Monday, it was the awkward, kind of clunky introduction to the John Chayka, Matt Sundin era, the press conference, and all the fallout of that. Just over 24 hours later, the Maple Leafs, in their grasp, have the first overall pick in the 2026 NHL draft. 10 years after they selected Austin Matthews first overall in 2016, they have the opportunity to pick first again. A fortuitous bounce falls on the lap of Chayka's office, day 2 of the job, Elliotte.
So the number 1 text I was getting after Toronto won the lottery was, I'll give you one guess what most people were saying.
Are you bleeping kidding?
Rigged. You know,
yes. Yeah.
But you're not far off.
Yes.
You're not far off. So like everybody else, I was watching the lottery, and you could tell Bukauskas, who was hosting it, he paused for a second. It was almost like Toronto won. Like you could even, without even seeing him on camera, I could tell by his reaction. It was the same reaction everybody else had. You know what the number 2 text was I got?
Okay. What?
I told you Chayka was a great choice.
Yeah. Yes. All is good again. We knew all along this was the right call. Goodness.
So obviously this is a huge deal, and there's so many implications out of this. You know, Kyle Davidson and the Blackhawks will pick 4th. He was asked about trading the 4th overall pick, and he made a comment along the lines of, we'd be interested in it, but these picks don't get dealt very often. And he's right about that. And you go back to the famous one from 2003 where it was Florida moved down 2 spots, let Pittsburgh moved up to get Marc-Andre Fleury, and it went Eric Staal 2 and Nathan Horton 3, and Florida got the guy they wanted. But other than that, trading out of that spot, it really doesn't happen. And, one of the things I've heard about McKenna, if you believe McKenna goes number 1, and it should be mentioned that Jason Bukala went on Hockey Night in Canada after the lottery and said if he was the Leafs, he would take Stenberg. But if McKenna's your guy, I think there were some teams I heard that were nervous about taking him first if they didn't have a center. Toronto's got that. Or, what did we hear from Chayka at the opening media conference? We need a more mobile defense. Well, there's a guy, Chase Reed, who's shooting up the draft, and maybe you do that. Or maybe you do try to do something where you move it for, and I don't even know if I would do it for current players unless it was a super stud, like a real legit stud, but maybe you try to turn into multiple first rounders. Although, if you follow the charts, there is a legitimate belief and reason to follow it that the draft really drops after number 2. That, there's a drop from pick 1 to pick 2, and there's an even bigger drop from pick 2 to pick 3. The famous one I always remember is the year that Nathan MacKinnon was up. Calgary had 3 picks in the first round, 6, 22, and 28. And they offered all 3 of them to Colorado for the number 1 pick. And Colorado was like, nope, we're not doing that. And it wasn't even a thought because they felt those 3 picks together weren't even worth number 1. So I'm sure Toronto will entertain all options here. But in the NHL, history shows if you have these picks, it is extremely rare that you move far away from them, almost a 0. So as we sit here right now, and John Chayka said we haven't even had a scouting meeting yet, I think you should expect that Toronto's going to make that pick.
Well, certainly when you consider, we know where their prospect pool and what assets they do have, and now that we know it's locked in, that their first-round pick from 27 and 28 will be going unprotected, 1 to Philadelphia and 1 to Boston. So you're out on that going forward.
Can I just set that up? Because there's been a lot of confusion about what it is. So I asked, and this is what I was told they're under the understanding of. So they've kept this year's pick, the 2026 pick. If the 2027 pick is in the top 10, Toronto chooses. They can give it to, if they give it to Boston, Philly gets a 28 unprotected. If they give it to Philly, Boston gets the 28 unprotected. And if it does not go in the top 10, Philly gets the 27 pick and Boston gets 28 unprotected. Because there's been a lot of confusion. That's what I've been told the situation is.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you for clearing that up. So this changes a lot now for them in terms of having a real legitimate asset, the opportunity to pick at the top of the draft. And, as we move along here too, Elliotte, there remains the Auston Matthews question and how he feels about everything. Chayka was asked about meeting with Auston and kind of the plan there, and ultimately trying to get a sense of how he feels of where the organization is going with now the new regime selected and them coming in and laying out their vision, and most importantly, the actions that are ultimately going to come from all of this. I think now it's one extra piece that they're armed with that the odds were suggesting they weren't going to have going into Tuesday evening. Not likely. It changes things and possibly allows for a little more flexibility if you do got to make some hard decisions when it comes to whether it be your captain or other members of your roster, ultimately how they want to move forward now that they've got the new regime in charge.
Going to be fascinating. It definitely changes the dynamic. People are going to ask, does this change anything for Matthews? I don't think it does at this point in time. Here's my belief on Matthews. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I believe that Austin Matthews is going to ask the Maple Leafs to sit down with them when they do and say, okay, not only what is your plan, but how are you actually going to execute the plan? You have to prove to him not only that you're going to be able to do this, but how you're actually going to be able to go out and do this. If they can do that to him, I think everything works out. Even if he likes the plan, Kyle, if he's not actually convinced they can act on it, that's where the problem is going to be. He, from what I understand, has to be convinced that it's not just the plan, because he believes they can actually execute the plan. That is the key here. But this is a step. There's no question about that. A very big step. But, we'll see. I still think there's going to have to be some convincing done here, because this player alone is not going to completely change the fortunes of the franchise, although it will help.
Well, and with that, I just point out too, and naturally, at least the initial knee-jerk reaction, it gets lost a little bit in the shuffle because, oh my gosh, Toronto won the lottery. They just hired a new GM and now they get to pick first overall. I really think like the real winner here on Tuesday night could be the San Jose Sharks. Like we know all about who they already have in-house, the warning shot that was kind of sent across the rest of the league this past season. They didn't get into the playoffs, but you could see where it's all headed there. And now they've got another second overall pick to either pick a player there or use that one to bring in some more immediate help and somebody and something you can actually grab and feel and go, I know what this player is or players are and how they can help us. I think that was an unbelievable turn of events for Mike Grier and company too Tuesday.
Someone who works in the Pacific Division said to me that he saw Mike Grier on TV and he was confused because he said Mike Grier looked as miserable That's as right. The rest of us, realizing they were getting another top 2 pick.
I know. It's almost like he thought they had fallen to 84th.
Mike, you can smile when you win the lottery.
That's right. I think Buchagros said as much.
He did. It was a great line.
Is a good thing.
But this guy said to me, in our organization, we were like, again, they're getting another one. This is absolutely not what we needed. And he looked more miserable than we did.
Yeah. So I think that's a huge one for San Jose, depending on how they go about utilizing that pick at number 2. But that was another shocker as they went through the whole lottery odds again. Okay.
Kyle, I think you should never draft for need. I think you should always draft for the best player. What San Jose does here will be very interesting, putting that to the test, because we know they don't have a lot of D. They have a lot of forwards, but they don't have a lot of D. It would think that one of the D at number 2, it would be easy for them to say, we need a D, let's take him. But I don't think you should ever lock yourself in like that. I think you always take the best player and go from there. It's another team. Like if you told me that San Jose moved down a little bit so somebody could move up, I would believe it.
Yes, absolutely. All right. I want to get to Vancouver?
Sure.
Okay. So they moved down 2 spots, which is not the end of the world, but You all
It
know
is there.
Oh, yes, yeah, you all know what's going on. Well, I always think about Colorado and the Cale Makar example, though I'm not sure there's a Cale Makar sitting there somewhere in the top 5 to be pick of this year's draft. Um, I just wonder how you're feeling. Like, again, Toronto, it's like, this is what's all going on here, and now everything is fine. Vancouver, we're in a great position to draft first overall. And now, seemingly, there's a lot of stuff being put out publicly of the GM search. Jim Rutherford announces Tuesday now that after the draft is done, he's going to be stepping aside.
Yeah.
We've got a timeline there now. And they fell not one spot, but 2 to 3rd overall in this year's draft.
The Rutherford thing didn't surprise me, just only the timing of the announcement. I think we all realized that it was coming soon for him. I didn't know if we expected either an announcement or a specific timeline, but clarity's good. I'm never going to knock that. They basically told us what's going on, and I'll never complain about that. I mean, they're still going to get a really good player, or have the opportunity to get a really good player. I know the Canucks fans are disappointed. The organization is disappointed. And I said in a couple of radio hits on Tuesday that I was kind of rooting for them, just because they'd had such terrible lottery luck. But the point is, they're going to be picking 3rd overall. Do you know off the top of their head when they picked that high?
I mean, was
Pretty
that
famous draft?
I was going to say, was that the Sedins?
Yes, 2-3. They haven't. Tom's sending you cheat notes. Yes, the Sedins 2-3.
Well, I was honestly thinking Pettersson, where they got him, but yeah, it was a little bit later.
Yeah, but also, and before that, you take a look for top 3. They had Peter Nedved 2nd overall in 1990 and Trevor Linden 2nd overall in 1988. So it's been a long time, like basically a generation since they got to pick this high. And I know it's disappointing, but overall you have to take some solace in the fact you are getting a really good pick. And, I made a point of asking our draft gurus, Bukala and Sam Cosentino, they both have the number 3 pick in their top tier. Sam's top tier is about 6 players. Bukala's is 4 or 5, he said, depending on the team. Some teams might feel differently, but he's at 4, maybe 5. So in terms of our draft gurus, you're still getting one of the top players. And I think that's a good thing for them. Now, I found out this week that one of the people the Canucks interviewed, and I don't know yet if it was in person. I think it was definitely a Zoom one, but I don't know if he's made their cut of 5, as Rutherford mentioned, is Martin Madden of the Anaheim Ducks. Martin Madden, I don't know him very well, but I know of him, and a lot of people do. He is incredibly highly regarded as a talent evaluator. And again, I don't know if Madden's a finalist for this job. I do know they talked to him. Extremely interesting to me. He keeps a very low profile. When I was speaking to somebody today, a couple people today, saying I'd heard he'd interviewed, the thing that they said to me was they didn't know if he would want something that high profile. But when you are trying to collect players and you have a pick as high as Vancouver's is, especially now since it's not one, they said that would be the kind of person you would want in your organization. So it was an intriguing name. I also believe the Canucks now have Scott White in their mix, although I don't know if he's been there in person. I think they've indicated that they want to talk to him. And I think that's one of the reasons Rutherford said it might be next week until the GM is hired. I heard White entered this process late, probably because of the Toronto stuff, and they may still want to talk to him. In person, they've done Evan Gold in person. They've done Ryan Bonus in person. They have Ryan Johnson there, Pierre Dorion in person. I don't know what to make of what was going on Tuesday. Dorion was obviously a serious candidate. You're not bringing somebody to Vancouver if he isn't a legitimate candidate. I don't think it was as close as it had been portrayed. Nothing was imminent. They weren't at a point where they were about to hire anybody. As Rutherford said, this might go into next week, and I suspect one of the reasons is because White entered this late after he didn't get Toronto. But I just don't think they're that close yet. But I don't know how anybody can't say he wasn't a legitimate candidate. They brought him there. Anyway, I just don't think they're ready to name anybody yet. But you know what? When I heard about Madden, it's an interesting guy. Like, that is the kind of guy, when you're rebuilding, you want him in your organization. I just don't know how he'd feel. And some other people wondered, would he want to be the front-facing guy in a market like Vancouver? He might be the kind of person you need a president of hockey operations with, somebody who can handle the public.
So, and for those that aren't aware, Martin Madden has been with the Anaheim Ducks, director of amateur scouting since 2008. He's also taken on the role of assistant general manager in the last 5-6 years also. I mean, that's a long time to spend in one organization. And if all the things you say about him in terms of his reputation, especially with around finding talent, are true, and we can only imagine that they are, you would have to think that this would be a guy that would have had interest from other organizations long before now. I mean, is this somebody that Pat Verbeek keeps a tight grasp on, that doesn't want to lose, or do you have any insight into that?
I just think that if it's a promotion, you grant permission, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's that simple. Eric Engels was saying that in at least one of these recent Canadiens GM searches, he was a candidate. So teams have talked to him before, and I don't know him. I'll be honest. I know of his reputation, but I don't know him. And the one concern anybody said was, would he want the attention that comes with that job?
Okay, so the search appears to still be going on in Vancouver. San Jose had a great night, though Mike Greer's face may suggest otherwise. And Toronto, a complete 180 from Monday to Tuesday.
Can we talk about Toronto a little bit?
Yeah.
What did you think when you watched all that?
Well, it felt a little clunky. I have to say.
Clunky?
Yeah.
Gee willikers, Dom, that press conference felt clunky.
Yeah. It was one of the, it just felt very clear that, and it wasn't even, I'm not even solely just referencing, the question that Steve Simmons put forth. But it's very clear that there were people around the league that reacted negatively to the hire, that had dealt with Chayka in the past when he was in Arizona, and some were out for blood right away. And I thought, again, like the question you asked him about having almost like, are you playing from behind a little bit, because of what's been out there already, how certain people feel about it, and now trying to navigate those waters as a general manager in the league again. It was an odd one. I was watching it from 35,000 feet, flying back from Tampa on Monday, and anyway, not much felt natural. But I suppose it's not the press conference you're trying to win; it's everything that follows it. But it was an odd start. I'll say that.
Okay, Kyle, just some thoughts of my own about the presser. I mean, obviously the biggest thing, even bigger news than Chayka, Sundin, and being hired, was Steve Simmons' question. Like, that completely overshadowed the entire media conference, I'm a sticks and stones person. And the advice I give a lot of people starting out in this business is sticks and stones. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words cannot hurt me. I think in this day and age, especially the social media era, you have to be extremely thick-skinned to things. We get exposed to a lot of opinions. We get exposed to a lot of harmful things. People, I always tell, especially young people now, people are going to say things about you that you're not going to believe, and they're going to believe things about you that you can't imagine people will think are true about you. And sometimes it's not right, and sometimes it's not fair, but that is the world that we have created for ourselves, and we're not ever going to be able to walk it back. This is where we are now. And I just tell people, if you start getting angry at every perceived slight, or start getting mad at anybody who makes fun of you, or start getting mad or trying to respond to everything that's said about you, you'll go insane, and B, people will do it even more because they can get under your skin. They know it gets to you. So I think if you're going to be the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs or any Canadian NHL team or any big team like Dallas Cowboys, you name your team, New York Yankees, you are going to have days where you're going to face questions like that. It's going to happen. And, I think that, people were saying the Leafs' responses were terrible. I don't think they look at it that way. I think they look at it as that question was asked, but we didn't make it worse by making our responses viral. They obviously had a plan of what they were going to say, and they weren't varying from that plan. And I think if I was in their shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. If you fire back or you get into an exchange in that situation, you're the one who's going to look worse. Because people are going to say that people won't be talking about the question. They'll be talking about how badly you lost your temper in response. So I think in that situation, if you're going to be an executive of a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs, you're going to have days where you're going to have to take that. You're going to have to eat that. And you're going to have to say, I'm putting my big boy or big girl pants on, and I'm just moving on. Now, they got handed a gift on Tuesday, the lottery. They got handed a magic box, Kyle. What's in this magic box? It could be another magic box. They got handed a gift, and it'll allow things to move on a little bit. But it's very clear that if you listen to Chayka in either the interview I did with him or the other questions that were asked, he's not looking back. He's looking forward. And ultimately, there clearly are people out there who are rooting for him to fail. There are clearly people out there who don't believe he can do the job. But right now, he's the guy in the chair. The only thing he can be concerned about is doing the job. And ultimately, we can sit here today and we can say this is going to work or this isn't going to work. But we're all going to find it together. And ultimately, he will determine if this is a success or not. And so, people say the press conference was a disaster. Hey, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but I don't think they poured gasoline on the fire. I think that press conference could have been a lot worse. And right now, that draft lottery gives them a gift where they have a chance to prove that they can make this better. If I was in John Chayka's shoes, I would be thinking only one thing. And that is that I have been handed the greatest gift I could ever receive, aside from my wife and children. And that is, I get a chance on the biggest stage. Okay? Whether you like his hiring or not, this is fact now. This is where we are, and this is where we are going. And I wouldn't waste any energy worrying about tough questions or what other people might think. You have one goal, and that goal is to try and win. And if you do that, that opening press conference is not going to matter. And that's the way I look at the world. In my career, I've had great moments. In my career, I've had some very depressing moments. I understand that when I signed up for this job, everything I did that was good would happen in public, and everything that I did was bad would happen in public. And you have to look at every day as a chance, as we talk about in the playoffs. Kyle, too, rewrite your own narrative. And no matter what happened, he has a gift here. And the gift is he gets to rewrite his own narrative on the biggest stage. And if I was in his shoes, that's the only thing I would care about, and nothing, and not whatever people might feel or media might feel or fans might feel. Because obviously it can't get any worse, but it could get a whole lot better.
Oh, we should also, Dom had something he wanted to add to the Vancouver state of affairs Tuesday.
Okay, what's that, Dom?
So we love ourselves a good quote from a movie or TV show, as you guys just did with Family Guy and the Magic Lock.
Yeah.
Well, there's no better quote to sum up how the Canucks fans are feeling today than this one from Shawshank Redemption.
Let me tell you something, my friend. Hope is a dangerous thing. Hope can drive a man insane. It's got no use on the inside. You better get used to that idea.
Hope can kill a man, boys. Hope can kill a man.
You're still going to get a good player.
No, and absolutely. I had this conversation with Bukauskas tonight. He said Caleb Malhotra will be great at third overall, but it's just the fact that the team has not won a first overall pick in franchise history. It would have just been nice to get the monkey off the back. That's all.
I understand. I was rooting for you guys. I root for teams that have bad lottery luck. I was rooting for you, but fate is a fickle mistress.
All right. Should we move to the action on the ice Tuesday?
Couple more things.
Okay.
I think out of this, Kyle, some of the more interesting storylines are going to be two of the particular picks. Number 7, Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9, Florida.
Yes. Very much in play.
Those are going to be
Florida for sure.
Some of the more interesting selections. A couple of the notes. I did want to mention a couple things. Tampa Bay, we heard from Victor Hedman, and he revealed the full nature of his absence. I think it shows the great respect that people have for Hedman. This kind of been whispered, and everybody kind of stayed out of the way. And let Hedman explain it himself. Hedman's, I'm told, is 1,000% going to play next year because That was one of the questions, Kyle. There was a rumor going around he wasn't going to play, that this was potentially it. So I'm glad for him that he feels better, and I'm glad for him that he's going to come back and play because I think we all love Hedman around.
Yes, I will say quickly, like as great as that series was between those two teams, it did not feel right, like going to the rink in the morning and you saw him out on the ice and then didn't see him suit up in a game all series long. It's the game's better when he's out there as the captain of the Lightning. So I'm glad to hear that.
Also with Tampa Bay, we talked about would they try to do something at center? It's a lot to ask for a person who's a very young player, but I know a couple of people have seen in the OHL playoffs, Kitchener's about to play Barrie. Sam O'Reilly, who was traded to Tampa in the Isaac Howard deal. I've heard great things about how he's looked, particularly in the playoffs. And Luke Gazdic has said he's been out for a couple games to watch him play, and he's a big fan. I'm curious to see if Tampa, which likes their prospects to marinate in Syracuse a bit, if they think he can play for them next year, because he looks fantastic. And also, you heard Julian Brisebois wax poetic about Kucherov. There's a few teams who think that Tampa will do what they've done a lot over the past couple of years. And when they say whenever Brisebois talks like that about a guy, they're going to try to take care of him early. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we get a Kucherov extension this offseason. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention before we go to games is that someone said to me, I am sick and tired of you getting Erik Karlsson's bonus wrong all the time. So Erik Karlsson, as we mentioned, next year, his salary is $1.5 million, and then there's a $6 million bonus. So he gets $7.5 million in cash. I have repeatedly said he gets all of that bonus on July 1st. I am told that is not correct. Someone listened to this pod and said enough of this garbage already. That bonus is apparently split into 3 equal parts. The first is July 1st, and the others come later in the season during play. So it's still not a lot, but it's not as he's not $1.5 million after July 1st. He's $5.5 million after July 1st, and it drops at 2 other points during the year.
Very interesting. Okay, thanks for clearing that up. Had no idea. That's great. Okay, let's get to the final thought then, which is brought to you by the Toyota BZ. And the final thought will be, we're flipping our first block than what we've been doing. The news first, and now we've got the lone playoff game on Tuesday night. It was Game 2, Elliotte, the Colorado Avalanche and Minnesota Wild. The Avs now have a 2-0 series lead in that heavyweight bout, 5-2 the final from Ball Arena. So Erik Johnson is on a rapid ascent of hockey broadcasting stardom. He's doing a tremendous job with ESPN. He was between the benches there on Tuesday night. He had, from what I've heard so far, and also should shout out, Ryan Strome looked phenomenal on our panel on Tuesday night too. Great to see Ryan as part of our coverage. Is it all this round he's doing games?
That was the first of 3 nights for him. I heard he was excellent, not surprised in the least. Always been a great talker. Mm-hmm. And there's another current NHLer who's coming in on the weekend, but I don't know if we've announced it. And let's just say I'm in enough trouble this week that I better not do it.
Okay. Look at you exercising caution. It's so unlike you.
Yeah, there's times, that one of the skills in life, Kyle, is knowing how much you can push a button. And I think I have pushed it pretty good this week.
Okay, so back to the Erik Johnson line. So he said, I don't know if you caught it early, maybe even just before our puck drop on Tuesday. He was talking about the Colorado Avalanche, and he said, if you are even, they are leaving. As in, if you're not above the puck, forget it, because they're blowing by you. They play that quick. And the first couple of minutes in, I thought we were going to have, and I'm sure a lot of people did, another 9-6 type scoreline on our hands with goals, 6 seconds apart. And then not long after, 2-1 Colorado. It buttoned down a little bit after that. But Minnesota, they go to Gustafsson here in game number 2. Still not enough to earn a split in Denver. So as great of a team that Minnesota is, how much trouble are they in, you think?
You know what someone texted me tonight, Kyle?
I've been horrible with these guesses so far, so I don't even want to try.
There is nothing you can do about it. Carolina, Colorado.
They're telling you that's the cup final.
That's what they were telling me. So I would assume we'll see Wallstedt back in game number 3.
Yeah,
he hadn't
about
played
3 months
in a
now
long
between games 2 and 3.
Yeah, that's right. We are going to see Halley's Comet twice in between games 2 and 3. It's the tough thing is that first goal, right?
Yes.
You have to get a save there. You have to get a save there. I remember in the last round there was Forsberg had been really good for the Kings, but he gave up one bad goal, and you were like, oh God, like the way Colorado's going, especially with the way the Kings played conservatively, you're like, we can't make up for that goal. And I just saw that one that Natchez scored to open the game, which was a really rough one for Gustafsson. And again, like there's no margin for, even if a team as good as Minnesota, there's no margin for error against Colorado right now. There's such a steamroller, and eventually they're going to, like, it's like Carolina. Like eventually these teams are going to have some degree of challenge. Like things you assume are going to go wrong for them at some point. But the way Colorado is going right now, you just can't give that one up. And, I think it's very obvious that they're going hard at Hughes. They really took the body on him. They gave him some big hits in game number 2. You have to make life rough on the other team's stars. But the other thing is that, do you think that McKinnon remembers that Boldy and Hughes played for Team USA at the Olympics?
Yes. he's in his mind, he is turning them into the stuffy he received along with his silver medal.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. He was treating them like they were the stuffed animal.
Yes. Yeah. That was, did you have an issue with the hit there at the end? I thought it was a battle that was just in a tough part of the ice.
So Kyle, initially I thought it was a battle, and I still think it's a battle. Like I like a tough physical game, and I think the two of them are battling there. I'll say this, it was closer to the numbers than I would like, but it's still a battle. And, like I said, and this game had a little bit of it too. The embellishment has really screwed up these officials.
Yeah, I was too. I thought it was a battle that just was in an area of the ice that the result, though thankfully far from worst case, it was just in a tough area is all.
Yeah.
Because they were both engaged there. And anyway, just two good players locking heads or locking shoulders there. I mean, Minnesota got themselves into penalty trouble. That didn't help their cause. Colorado made them pay a couple times here, missing Joel Eriksson-Ek again. We talked about how much value he has, and Wild fans know all too well what he brings to the table there for Minnesota. It's tough. I totally understand, the old cliche of you're never in trouble until you lose at home, but the idea of any team, to say nothing of one of Minnesota's caliber, of beating Colorado 4 out of the next 5, it is a very, very tall task.
Beating them 4 out of 5 right now sounds borderline impossible.
So they've got not just 1, not 2, but 3 days now for the Wild to collect themselves and try to come up with a plan to dig their way out of an 0-2 hole here in the second round against the juggernaut Avalanche in this Central Division clash. That was the final thought, brought to you by the Toyota BZ. We'll take our first break, come back and talk about the 2 games from Monday night, and also look ahead to Montreal-Buffalo, Game 1 later tonight. 32 Thoughts, the podcast, continues after this. Okay, welcome back. So Monday night, 2 games were on the slate, including game number 2 between Carolina and Philadelphia. And Elliotte, I couldn't help but feel for the Flyers on Monday the same way I was feeling about Ottawa game 2 against Carolina, one that they were much better in, much more competitive in. In fact, the Flyers had a 2-0 lead early. It was the first time the Hurricanes had trailed in these playoffs. But another Game 2 that goes into overtime and an opportunity to even the series. You had some glorious chances, Travis Konechny among them, to take a split out of Raleigh and head back home. But alas, in a hole, 0-2.
Yeah.
And it feels like a very large one for the Flyers, not unlike Ottawa around previous, against a Carolina machine that keeps on churning.
The thing about Carolina, too, is that they finally trailed fast and they still found a way to get back in it. I really thought that goal that made it 2-1, the Ehlers goal in the first period, when I saw that go in, I was thinking, oh, that is bad for the Flyers. You know, you're sitting there, you're up 2-0. The Hurricanes are finally feeling a little bit of trouble. You're up 2-0 under 5 minutes in. Like, you've almost got to get out of that first period in control. And they didn't. The Hurricanes came back and they got that goal. And I have to say this, I'm sure he's played other great games in his career, but that was one of the best games I've ever seen K'Andre Miller play. Like, he was the guy who forced the turnover on Ristolainen that led to that critical first goal. Kevin actually made a great point, because I was wondering, you know, Philly should never have been in trouble there. They should have been able to get that puck out. And I'm not blaming the referee for this one. I think it's kind of an unfortunate fluke play. But Kevin says that Ristolainen can't rim the puck because the referee's in position in the corner. He doesn't want to hit him with the puck and have the puck either injure him or go down, get knocked down in the corner. So he kind of makes a bad giveaway that leads to Carolina's first goal. You know, it's all you can do is forget about it and move on and say we're going home and hopefully we can change the series. But that had to be such a deflating defeat for the Flyers, because you get that early lead, you give one up, you do a lot of things right, and you lose it in overtime. And, you know, Hall continues to be excellent these playoffs. But that Miller, it's like just that game. And it's not only because he had that one play, though that was a big play. I just thought he was constantly all over the ice. Like, you've probably seen the video that the Hurricanes talk about when they trade for him, when they threatened the Rangers with the offer sheet and then traded for him. And that is that we think he's the kind of skater who can fit with what we do. And I'm sure there's been other games this year where he's looked good, but boy, he was tremendous that game. Very, very deflating for the Flyers.
I was happy for Taylor Hall. Like, it's been interesting kind of watching, I guess you call it the back nine of his career here now, Elliotte. You know, barring anything unforeseen, he'll hit 1,000 games next season. And, you know, you think about where he first came into the league, a high draft pick, number 1 overall to Edmonton, part of that group that, you know, the team was struggling. They all got long-term deals right away with him and Eberle, Nugent Hopkins and all that. And then as his career's gone on and the last few years where he's kind of bounced around and you're thinking, okay, what's the right role for Taylor? Like, he was on a good Boston team. He went to Chicago that was in a rebuild, helping some younger guys. And now you find him here in Carolina. Like, it's neat to hear him in interviews and just see the way he's conducting himself. Like, it just looks like a guy that's very appreciative of the spot that he's in. He's with a team that's got a chance to win. And like the way he's embraced, you know, playing with 2 young players in Jackson Blake and Logan Stankoven. It's it's really worked there. It's been awesome to see. So I was happy for him that he was the hero here in game 2 and like was a good patented, ugly playoff overtime goal. Blake just enough to get his stick on the puck so that Vladar couldn't grab it with his glove, and that was all that Hall needed to do the rest. And now going forward for Philadelphia, Friedge, I mean, no Tippett was a blow for the Flyers. Like, and you mentioned it on the panel, like, just, you know, how much a guy like that would help them against a team of Carolina's caliber and how they play. And then it looks like Noah Cates' status going forward is in question now too for Philadelphia. So not only are they down 2-0, they've got injury troubles to guys that you know, could be important players for them too to worry about.
Nothing you said there was wrong. I can't always say that, Kyle, but nothing you said there was wrong.
Okay. So that was we'll call it the early game on Monday. Late game was game one, Golden Knights and Ducks. And I still cannot believe that was not called icing moments before the Knights made it 2-1 in the third period. What were you thinking watching that whole thing play out?
First of all, somebody told me that the league was unhappy with Quenneville's reaction. I don't know what you expect in that situation. How can you expect him not to be? Any coach in that situation would have had the exact same reaction. I think you have to understand that these are competitive humans. And if you saw that call in that moment, any coach would have been up in arms. So let's dial that back a little bit. I'm with you. And, people do forget that it's not a race to the dot. It's when the first skater is at the dot, who do you think is going to win the race? And when I saw that, I was really surprised. I said, boy, it sure looks like the Ducks are going to win the race there. And exactly, that was the other thing too. Like sometimes a player gets the benefit of the doubt, and I'll tell you that someone actually said that to me. They wonder if Eichel got the call, that because it was Eichel, that he got the respect call from the officials, that he was going to win that race. But
don't mean to cut you off, but would you not say, like, when you were watching that there, not only in real time, but the replay too, Eichel looked 100%. Like a guy that was expecting the whistle. Like, he stopped skating. He was thinking the whistle was coming.
Yeah, I'm with you. To me, look, I thought it should have been icing. 100% I thought it should have been icing. I will say this, though. One NHLer said to me that he could buy where the official was standing, that maybe he thought at high speed Eichel could win that race. I don't agree, but because of this individual stature as an active NHL player, I said I would put it on the pod. He goes, I want to hear this story on the pod. I said, okay, there's the story. I said, I disagree with you, but since you are so adamant that your perspective be heard, here it is. Don't say I am not a friendly dictator, Kyle. I am definitely a friendly dictator, but I still think it was icing. And I agree with you. Lacombe, the way he's played, maybe he doesn't have Eichel's experience, but he deserved the call. It should have been icing. But I'll say this. I thought it was a great game. Anaheim didn't look intimidated. Not that you would expect them to. You went around. You shouldn't be intimidated. It's going to be another long fight of a series. There was nothing I saw in game one that made me think that this wasn't going to be a long, tremendous series like we all think. The one thing I thought was interesting was I did hear people say that the Golden Knights will be more physical on Anaheim than Edmonton was. And they say that's the biggest difference the Ducks will face in round two. Not only does every round get harder, and nobody disrespects the Ducks. We all see how good they are. They say that in addition to Vegas's better structure, they will be more physical with them. And that is the challenge. That is a different challenge that they will get from the Knights that they didn't get from the Oilers.
I just felt for Lacombe a few times there on Monday night. It was just one of those nights where bounces, things just aren't going his way, no matter how hard he tries. So I think he'll have a monster game too in response. I think the Ducks will in tow too. I'm with you. It was entertaining hockey, and Anaheim again getting a sense of, all right, we lost game one, but nothing about that should we feel we're really in trouble here yet. So we'll see how they handle things going forward against Vegas. I also wanted to say too, like Brett Howden scores again. He opened the scoring here on Monday. It was a heck of a pass by Mitch Marner through traffic. But again, it was like a great example that the whole idea of, well, anybody can play with great players. Like, no, the awareness that he had there about knowing what Marner was thinking and just finding an area, stick on the ice, and knowing that the puck was going to get through, like, that was high intelligence stuff. It was, they've got something cooking there between those two. And we've seen it a few times already, these playoffs.
I do agree with you on one critical point, and that is that not everybody can play with great players. It is a skill to be able to do it.
Okay, exciting stuff out of Vegas, and anticipate a long series still to come there. Why don't we take one final break? When we come back, we will tee up the series that you and I are covering in person, the Sabres and the Canadiens, and look ahead to what else is on tap for Wednesday night in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Back in a moment. All right, one final series to get here of the second round. It begins in Buffalo later tonight. The Sabres and the Canadiens. You know it's a big series because not only is Elliotte Friedman in town, David Amber is in town too. Double the fun, allegedly. Not for me. But you made the drive in.
We are going to drag you out on the town.
Okay, you do realize the main reason why I don't go out often is because we're recording this bloody show to the wee hours of the morning.
No,
that's like Santa Claus ripping his elves for not taking time off around Christmas.
Don't blame it on me. I know the truth. You're soft. Dave and I are here together to solve this problem.
Oh, thank you. Yes, my therapists, Friedman and Amber. Goodness. Okay, so you drove
I don't
up.
get paid enough for that.
Yeah, yes, I will pay you nothing. You drove up here on Tuesday. You got in town just in time for the Sabres practice.
Yeah,
that's a great room to walk. There's a lot of
good guys,
personalities, good talkers in there.
Yeah,
like you can. It's no surprise the team has come together the way they have. We've seen the on ice abilities. But your thoughts on this series here as we are about to get it going.
I think this is going to be a great series. And one of the interesting things, Kyle, is that you were in the room, in the Buffalo room. Montreal's wasn't here yet on Tuesday. They were flying in Tuesday afternoon. And what were they all saying? That Boston was not going to run and gun with them, but Montreal will. And they said they think this is going to be a very different series, that Boston was not going to try rush chances. They were going to play it more cautiously. They were going to play it carefully. I can't remember which Sabre it was, but they initially said that Boston, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Alex Lyon or not. I don't want to misquote anybody, but one of them said, like, Boston almost looks at it like a sense of pride, that there's a certain way they play and that they're not going to give up rush chances to you. Like, they like that they have a reputation as a team that is detail oriented, is disciplined, and doesn't play kind of like river hockey against you. And I love that the river hockey phrase came up again today.
Yes, Sam Carrick.
Yes, but Montreal, and again, I don't think it's because Montreal is undisciplined or anything. I think far from it. But I just believe that they think that Montreal is less afraid to trade chances with them, and that those moments will happen. Like, Montreal will rush you. They will take more risks than Boston did. The best thing about this series, though, Kyle, is we are going into two of the most phenomenal buildings in the National Hockey League when their teams are good.
Yes.
It is hard to find places better than Buffalo and better than Montreal when their teams are soaring. And I just think this is going to be... Montreal fans just went through a 7-game roller coaster against Tampa, and they're about to go through another 7-game roller coaster against the Sabres. But I think it's going to be different hockey. And I wanted to shout out the Lions, Tim and Deb. Alex Alex Lyon says that his parents get most of their hockey information from this broadcast. So let me congratulate you, Tim and Deb Lyon, for being the most uninformed hockey fans in all of the world.
That's like putting too much money into one stock.
Seriously, the key is diversification. That's what my financial analyst told me.
Yes.
But Tim and Deb, we thank you very much for your loyal listenership. We don't have jobs without people like you, and there's many of you. But thank you to the Lions.
We're a big fan of your son.
I don't know what, Sam Carrick back. That's a difference maker. Sam Carrick was a great fit in Buffalo, and that's going to be another challenge for Montreal. I was really impressed with Noah Dobson. We talked about it last pod. These teams are coming in closer to full health as far as we know. This is going to be a great series, and I cannot wait for it to get started. When I checked into the hotel that we're staying at today, the young man who was behind the counter, I think his name was Andrew, he was wired for the series. He couldn't stop talking about it. And I have no doubt that all the Sabre Nation is the same way. And when we get to Montreal, La Belle Province will be the exact same way too.
I think it was so critical for both teams in their first round. You mentioned Buffalo, like they had to get to the realization and prove to themselves that they could adapt to how Boston played, and they did that. Montreal, how do we handle a veteran team when games get tight? Do we shrink? Do we panic? They didn't do any of that. Slavkovsky said it on Tuesday after that series against the Lightning. He feels like we're all better hockey players now because of it. I think we've talked about it in the past, like when you don't really have much playoff experience, it's like every game is almost like dog years, that type of effect versus the regular season. So for all those guys that now have 6 games more experience, 7 games more, it is a world of a difference. Martin St. Louis got out of his comfort zone in terms of the ability to adapt and change things on the fly with different lines and combinations he put out there. That, I think, was a big hurdle for himself as a coach. You've got the veteran man in Lindy Ruff who's been doing this forever and ever and ever and has seen just about everything. And now it's like, okay, who blinks first? 2 teams that are confident of like, however they want to play across the ice, we're fine with it. And at some point, it in a lot of ways feels like Tampa, Montreal. It's just like 2, I don't want to say unstoppable forces, but very confident forces now butting heads for potentially 7 games, and we wouldn't be surprised at all if it went to the distance. If nothing else, this will be the loudest of the second round series, given the 2 buildings we were going into. Can't wait.
2 things, as you mentioned. I came in on Tuesday, my partner David Amber not showing up until Wednesday. So if you see a marked difference in preparation on the air during coverage of the series, you will understand why.
Yeah.
And secondly, Renaud Lavoie, we mentioned that he was under the weather. Renaud went public with his information that he suffered 2 strokes last Friday before Game 6 of the series between the Lightning and the Canadiens. I believe he wrote in the article about how he took an aspirin beforehand, and that helped him, and also the care of the Canadiens. Mm-hmm. Someone said to me, did you have to bring up the urinal stuff, knowing that Renaud had suffered 2 strokes? And I said, you know how guys are. When you're recovering, there's nothing better than humor. So, and I was glad to hear that Renaud laughed about it when he heard it.
Good. Yes. And we keep hearing that he's, each day is getting better for him, and that's wonderful. So we miss him here in Buffalo.
Yes, we do.
But we know it's for all the right reasons, as he's taking care of himself and making sure he's getting better. So look forward to seeing you at the rink when we do see you. Renaud. 2 games tonight, Elliotte. It begins with Hockey Central at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific time, setting up game number 1, as we just talked about, Canadiens and Sabres from the KeyBank Center, a little after 7 ET on Sportsnet and CBC. That'll make way for Game 2 between Vegas and Anaheim. That one's at 9:30 Eastern, or a little after that. 3:30 Pacific time. That'll start over on Sportsnet 360, and we'll shift to the Sportsnet main channels when the Canadiens and Sabres are all wrapped up. Game number 1 there. 2 more great games on a Wednesday night. We hope you enjoy them. We appreciate you once again following along throughout the playoffs with us. We will talk to you again Friday morning.